everybody. My name is Chloe Boynton, and this is my lifespan timeline presentation for Kinesiology 372, Motor Learning and Development. So here's a little bit of background information about me. I am 21 years old and grew up living in Gaylord, Michigan with my parents and my older brother Brett, as well as my younger brother Brady. Our family moved to Gladwin in 2021, where I finished my high school career. I then spent 2 years at Mid-Michigan Community College before transferring to SVSU this year. Animals have always been a huge part of my life, and I have a significant passion for them. I am also a big country music girl. My faith is extremely important to me. I love traveling and being outdoors, line dancing, and enjoying making art, as well as eating a good bowl of ice cream. I am currently pursuing a degree in occupational therapy where I hope to improve independence and well-being in the lives of others. My dream is to integrate animal-assisted interventions into my practice to help encourage both joy and motivation in my clients. Now we will discuss my infancy. So, three of the reflexes or involuntary movements I displayed as an infant include the sucking reflex, Babinski reflex, and the stepping reflex. The sucking reflex is characterized by the tongue and jaw creating a negative pressure system in the mouth that allows an infant to take in and swallow milk and other similar foods. The sucking reflex is usually present from birth to 3 months. I was equipped with this reflex at birth, as other babies are for the most part. And I also showed this reflex when sucking on pacifiers, as seen in the picture below. This reflex is not only essential for nutrition, but also shown with the pacifiers. It also appears to create highly calming effects for infants. Then the Babinski reflex occurs upon stroking the bottom of an infant's foot, which causes the infant's toes to extend or spread apart. This reflex is usually present from birth to up to 2 years. However, it often disappears earlier within the first year of life. My mom recalls often stroking or tickling my own feet, causing my little toes to fan out. Finally, the stepping reflex. So, as seen in the picture below with my aunt, the stepping reflex involves an infant mimicking walking by lifting his or her feet and knees when held in an upward position. Unlike walking, no weight bearing or arm swinging occurs. The stepping reflex is typically present from birth to 2 or 3 months of age. Now, onto voluntary movements. Some of the voluntary movements I exhibited in infancy included head lifting in prone position, crawling and creeping, as well as cruising. So, the ability to lift the head in the prone position is a progression milestone in voluntary head control, and it consists of infants being able to lift and stabilize their heads on their own while lying on their stomachs. This specific voluntary head movement typically emerges at around 2 or 3 months of age. However, this movement has also been known to happen earlier. As my parents reported, I displayed this movement at about 1 month of age. Then, typically around 5 months of age, infants will progress in head control and begin to be able to lift their heads in the supine position or on their backs. Then, crawling, conversely, is characterized by infants propelling themselves forward on their stomachs by using their strength from their forearms as their legs drag behind them. This takes place at about 8 months. And my parents describe this movement looking a lot like an army crawl for me. Conversely, creeping is characterized by the infant's stomach being lifted off of the ground as the infant uses all four limbs in an alternative motion to get from one area to the next. Creeping often occurs between 9 and 12 months. Finally, cruising is a stage that commonly occurs before an infant is fully able to walk independently. Cruising often involves infants walking in a sideways manner, using their arms to gain stability and support from nearby objects. This movement is usually observed around 10 months of age. My parents noted that I started cruising along with a little dancing at 9 months. Now onto childhood. Some of the foundational skills I learned in childhood included catching, striking, and throwing. Catching is the ability to grasp an object in motion with one's hands. And the criteria determined by the TGMD2 for maturity in catching a ball include that the elbows are flexed and hands are placed in front of the body during preparation. Arms extend to reach for the ball. The ball is caught only using the hands. And then striking involves contacting another object. And in the scenario of striking a ball with a bat, the criteria for maturity in this skill include that the dominant hand is placed above the non-dominant hand while gripping the bat. The unpreferred side of the body faces forward with feet parallel. The hip and shoulder both rotate during the swing. The body weight is placed on the front foot. And lastly, the bat makes contact with the ball. Throwing is another foundational skill that involves releasing an object from one's grasp and sending it flying through the air. And according to the TGMD2, the criteria for maturity in throwing a ball include downward movement of the hand and arm is used to begin the windup. Hips and shoulders are rotated until the non-throwing side of the body is facing the area receiving the throw. Step the step of the foot opposite of the throwing hand is used to transfer the body weight. And finally, the follow through is performed by sending the arm that released the ball diagonally across the body. So these foundational skills that I experienced growing up uh, significantly prepared me for learning how to play softball. So, a lot of part practice took place in helping me build and progress in the skill of playing softball, in particularly the method of simplification. Before I engaged in full-on softball, I learned how to play t-ball, which simplified striking by allowing me to hit the ball in place rather than in motion. And I then progressed to coach pitch softball, where regular softball batting was made easier through the gentle underhand throwing of the coaches. Additionally, even after I began participating in actual softball, my teammates and I often would practice hitting wiffle balls, which came at increasingly lower speeds to improve our batting form. Additionally, practice in softball when I was older consisted of predominantly of blocked practice sessions. My coaches would often have different stations set up for my teammates and I to rotate around, working on a specific skill for a specific set of time at each station. I also engaged in more distributed practice during T-ball and coach pitch softball, which consisted of less practice time in more spread out sessions and more frequent breaks. This was likely correlated to my younger age and probably our younger or our lower attention span. As I got older, softball shifted to a more mass practice schedule where breaks became less frequent and longer periods of time were spent on honing skills and practice. In addition to progressing from t-ball and coach pitch to softball, another way I progressed was learning how to play new positions. And finally, adulthood. So below, I have created a projected timeline of the rest of my lifespan, including the circumstances and goals I hope to accomplish in each decade. In my 20s, I hope to get married, graduate with my master's in occupational therapy, continue making exercising and healthy eating a habit, travel some, obtain a PRN job, and start a family. And then in my 30s, I hope to finish having kids, find a long-term job in my desired specialty, really start pouring into my community, and hopefully have some farm animals. In my 40s, I would like to continue working, help support my kids in college, and start traveling and volunteering a little more. In my 50s, I hope to retire, continue to prioritize my health and activity, explore new hobbies, and continue to foster friendships. In my 60s, I wish to become more involved in the community, which I think volunteering at my church through the youth group would be a very cool thing to do, and have grandkids and help babysit them, travel more with my husband, and foster animals. And then in my 70s, I hope to keep pouring into my grandkids, children, and community, still go on dates with my husband, be active and engage in activities and hobbies I enjoy. Lastly, in my 80s, I still hope to be largely independent and still live at home with possibly some at-home healthcare if needed, attend church and other events still, visit with loved ones, and go on walks. I hope to maintain adequate physical activity throughout my lifespan, which will help prevent secondary factors of aging, such as cardiovascular issues that run in my family, and improve my overall quality of life. As I age, I know that it will be increasingly challenging to move my body as I lose muscle mass and strength, and my bones become more fragile, among other factors. However, modifying my activity through lower impact exercises could be highly effective. I also find it important, especially with my family's history of dementia, to keep my mind engaged and maintain a fulfilling social life in my old age. In my efforts to maintain healthy mental and physical well being, I hope to live up to or surpass my expected longevity of life, which was 88 according to the lifespan calculator. And in summary, in infancy, I demonstrated relatively normal development, exhibiting reflexes and voluntary movements at predictable ages. Some of these movements included the sucking reflex, Babinski reflex, stepping reflex, head lifting in the prone position, crawling, creeping, and cruising. And in childhood, I learned various foundational skills at a normative rate, including the skills of throwing, catching, and striking, which contributed to the building of softball skills. And lastly, in adulthood, my expected lifespan was until my late 80s about, and some health issues do run in my family that are keen to be aware of, such as cardiovascular issues, high blood pressure, and dementia. And lastly, I realized that I aspire to live a healthy, active, social, and fulfilling lifestyle into my old age. And that completes my lifespan timeline. Thank you.